Hello and welcome to day 72 of the Not Alone Today Chronological Bible Reading Plan with Joseph and Anu. Today we'll be reading Judges chapter 3 from verse 7 to chapter 6 to verse 40 using the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition.
Judges chapter 3 from verse 7. The Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, forgetting the Lord their God and serving the Baals and the Asherahs. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of King Cushan-Rishathaim of Aram Naharaim. And the Israelites served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the Israelites who delivered them, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord gave King Cushan-Rishathaim of Haram into his hand, and his hand prevailed over Cushan-Rishathaim, and so the land had rest 40 years. Then Othniel, son of Kenaz, died.
The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened King Eglon of Moab against Israel, because they had done what was evil in the sight of the Lord. In alliance with the Ammonites and the Amalekites, he went and defeated Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. So the Israelites served King Eglon of Moab 18 years.
But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord raised up for them a deliverer, Ehud, son of Gera, a Benjamite, a left-handed man. The Israelites sent tribute by him to King Eglon of Moab. Ehud made for himself a sword with 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he fastened it on his right thigh under his clothes. Then he presented a tribute to King Eglon of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he sent the people who carried the tribute on their way. But he himself turned back at the sculptured stones near Gilgal and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." So the king said, "Silence!" and all his attendants went out from his presence. Ehud came to him while he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber and said, "I have a message from God for you." So he rose from his seat. Then Ehud reached with his left hand and took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into Eglon's belly. The hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw the sword out of his belly, and the dirt came out. Then Ehud went out into the vestibule and closed the doors of the roof chamber on him and locked them.
After he had gone, the servants came. When they saw that the doors of the roof chamber were locked, they thought, "He must be relieving himself in the cool chamber." So they waited until they were embarrassed. When he still did not open the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them. There was their Lord lying dead on the floor.
Ehud escaped while they delayed and passed beyond the sculptured stones and escaped to Seirah. When he arrived, he sounded a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hill country, having him at their head. He said to them, "Follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and allowed no one to cross over. At that time they killed about 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong, able-bodied men. No one escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years.
After him came Shamgar, son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad. He too delivered Israel.
Chapter 4. The Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died. So the Lord sold them into the hand of King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help, for he had 900 chariots of iron and had oppressed the Israelites cruelly 20 years.
At that time, Deborah, a prophet, wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the Israelites came up to her for judgment. She sent and summoned Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, position yourself at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Zebulun. I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the Wadi Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him unto your hand." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go." And she said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Then Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 warriors went up behind him, and Deborah went up with him.
Now Heber the Kenite had separated from the other Kenites, that is, the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had encamped as far away as Elon Bezanim, which is near Kadesh.
When Sisera was told that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called out all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the troops who were with him, from Harosheth Ha-Goim to Wadi Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Up, for this is the day on which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Has the Lord not gone out before you?" So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 warriors following him. And the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariots and all his army into a panic before Barak. Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot, while Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Harosheth Ha-Goyim. All the army of Sisera fell by the sword, not one was left.
Now Sisera had fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, wife of Eber the Kenite. For there was peace between King Jabin of Azor and the clan of Eber the Kenite. Jael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord. Turn aside to me, have no fear." So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. Then he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. He said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent, and if anybody comes and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say no." But Jael, wife of Eber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground. He was lying fast asleep from weariness, and he died. Then as Barak came in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking." So he went into her tent, and there was Sisera lying dead, with the tent peg in his temple.
So on that day, God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. Then the hand of the Israelites bore harder and harder on King Jabin of Canaan, until they destroyed King Jabin of Canaan.
Chapter 5. Then Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, sang on that day. When locks are long in Israel, when the people offer themselves willingly, bless the Lord.
Hear, O kings, give ears, O princes. To the Lord I will sing. I will make melody to the Lord, the God of Israel.
Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the region of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens poured. The clouds indeed poured water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, the one of Sinai, before the Lord, the God of Israel.
In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, caravans ceased, and travelers kept to the byways. The peasantry prospered in Israel. They grew fat on plunder. Because you arose, Deborah arose as a mother in Israel. When you gods were chosen, then wars was in the gates. Was a shield or a spear to be seen among 40,000 in Israel? My heart goes to the commanders of Israel, who offer themselves willingly among the people. Bless the Lord.
Sing of it, you who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk by the way, to the sound of musicians at the watering places. There they repeat the triumphs of the Lord, the triumphs of his peasantry in Israel.
Then down to the gates marched the people of the Lord. Awake, awake, Deborah. Awake, awake, utter a song. Arise, Barak, lead away your captives, O son of Abinoam. Then down marched the remnant of the nobles. The people of the Lord marched down for him against the mighty. From Ephraim they set out into the valley, following you, Benjamin, with your king. From Machir marched down the commanders, and from Zebulun those who bear the marshal's staff. The chiefs of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar faithful to Barak. Into the valley they rushed out at his heels. Among the clans of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. Why did you tarry among the sheepfolds to hear the piping for the flocks? Among the clans of Reuben there were great searchings of hearts. Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan, and Dan, why did they abide with the ships? Asher sat still at the coast of the sea, settling down by its landings. Zebulun is a people that scorned death, Naphtali too on the heights of the field.
The kings came, they fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan at Taanach by the waters of Megiddo. They got no spoils of silver. The stars fought from heaven, from their courses they fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon swept them away. The onrushing torrent, the torrent Kishon, march on, my soul, with might.
Then loud beats the horses' hoofs, with galloping of his steeds.
Curse Meroz, says the angel of the Lord. Curse bitterly its inhabitants, because they did not come to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty.
Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, the tent-dwelling women most blessed. Water he asked, milk she gave. She brought him curds in a lordly bowl. She put her hand to the tent peg and her right hand to the worker's mallet. She struck Sisera a blow. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. Between her feet he sank. He fell. He lay still. Between her feet he sank. He fell. Where he sank, there he fell dead.
Out of the window she peered. The mother of Sisera gazed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofbeats of his chariots? Her wisest ladies make answer. Indeed, she answers the question herself. Are they not finding and dividing the spoil? A woman or two for every man. Spoil of dyed stuffs for Sisera. Spoil of dyed stuffs embroidered. 2 pieces of dyed work embroidered for my neck as spoil.
So perish all your enemies, O Lord. But may your friends be like the sun as it rises in its might. And the land had rest 40 years.
Chapter 6. The Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Midian 7 years. The hand of Midian prevailed over Israel, and because of Midian, the Israelites provided for themselves hiding places in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. For whenever the Israelites put in seed, the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. They would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the land, as far as the neighborhood of Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, nor any sheep or ox or donkey. For they and their livestock would come up, and they would even bring their tents as thick as locusts. Neither they nor their camels could be counted, so they wasted the land as they came in. Thus Israel was greatly impoverished because of Midian, and the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help.
When the Israelites cried to the Lord on account of the Midianites, the Lord sent a prophet to the Israelites, and he said to them, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I led you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of slavery. And I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You shall not pay reverence to the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you have not given heed to my voice.
Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the oak at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, as his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, you mighty warrior." Gideon answered him, "But sir, if the Lord is with us, then why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our ancestors recounted to us, saying, 'Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt?' But now the Lord has cast us off and given us into the hand of Midian." Then the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. I hereby commission you." But he responded, "But sir, how can I deliver Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike down the Midianites, every one of them." Then he said to him, "If now I have found favor with you, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay until you return."
So Gideon went into his house and prepared a cake and unleavened cakes from an ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and the broth he put in a pot, and brought them to him under the oak and presented them. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened cakes, and put them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And he did so. And the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of the staff that was in his hand, and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes. And fire sprang up from the rock, and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. And the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. Then Gideon perceived it was the angel of the Lord. And Gideon said, "Help me, Lord God, for I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace be to you. Do not fear. You shall not die." Then Gideon built an altar to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it still stands at Ophrah, which belongs to the Abiezrites.
That night the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull, the second bull 7 years old, and pull down the altar of Baal that belongs to your father, and cut down the sacred pole that is beside it, and build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold here, in proper order. Then take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the sacred pole that you cut down." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his family and the townspeople to do it by day, he did it by night.
When the townspeople rose early in the morning, the altar of Baal was broken down, and the sacred pole beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. So they said to one another, "Who has done this?" After searching and inquiring, they were told, "Gideon, son of Joash, did it." Then the townspeople said to Joash, "Bring out your son so that he may die, for he has pulled down the altar of Baal and cut down the sacred pole beside it." But Joash said to all who were arrayed against him, "Will you contend for Baal, or will you defend his cause? Whoever contends for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because his altar has been pulled down." Therefore, on that day, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, that is to say, "Let Baal contend against him," because he pulled down his altar.
Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east came together, and they crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord took possession of Gideon, and he sounded the trumpet, and the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. He sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and they too were called out to follow him. He also sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they went up to meet them.
Then Gideon said to God, "In order to see whether you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said, I am going to lay a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said. And it was so. When he arose early next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung out enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, do not let your anger burn against me, but let me speak one more time. Let me, please, make trial with the fleece just once more. Let it be dry only on the fleece, and on all the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night. It was dry on the fleece alone, and on all the ground there was dew. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Just a quick recap from the chapters we've read, chapters 3 to 6. So we read about the first few judges that the Israelites had. We read about Othniel, Ehud. We read about Shamgar, and then Deborah and Barak, and Gideon. And the story that ran through these chapters where the Israelites did what was wrong. They cried out to God. God set up a judge for them to deliver them. Then they had rest. And it happened again. Then God would send another judge. They would have rest. Up until the account of Gideon that we ended with. What stood out to you in chapter 3?
Thank you. In chapter 3 from verse 7, it's easy for us to just read these many chapters, but I was struck by how long they had as years of rest between the judges. So after Othniel's battle, Bible says in verse 11, the land had rest for 40 years. And then after Ehud's tenure, Bible says, and the land had rest 80 years. 80 years is a long time. And it's like these interludes of rest is what makes it possible to eventually have an apostate generation. Like, God warned them about this again and again in Deuteronomy. I think specifically about Deuteronomy chapter 8, where he says that when you are in that land and you have eaten your fill, remember the Lord, it says in verse 18, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth. But obviously, to be in a place of rest is a perfect recipe to forget the Lord. And that is something we must fight against. Life moves around in cycles. And yes, we will go through seasons of rest, but we will also have seasons of unrest. And when we are in our seasons of rest, we want to be extra careful. Naturally, in seasons of unrest, we are quick to depend on God, to cry out to God, to pray as if our lives depend on it, because perhaps indeed, sometimes it literally depends on it. But in times of rest, we want to be extra intentional in remembering our source, lest, as the Yorubas will say, a river that forgets its source will dry up. Yeah.
What stood out to me was what Ehud did. However, first he was identified as a left-handed man, and that he made for himself a sword with two edges, a cubit in length. And in my view, like in practice and application to ourselves as Christians, if Ehud had friends, and he told them, oh guys, I'm going to make a sword with two edges, I'm sure they would say, it can't be head off. You can only have one edge and the other needs to be blunt. But I believe that he was being led by God to do what he did. He made for himself that sword, fastened it under his right thigh, and then went on to kill Eglon with it. But what he did afterwards was what was more amazing. How that when he got to Israel, he sounded the trumpets, and the people went down. He said, follow me, because the Lord has given your enemies Moab into my hand. It portrays a man not distracted with nonsense, so to say, that doesn't need to consult like 20 people before they act on the instructions God is asking them to do. It reads to me like a focused mind, And that is really instructive to me. And whilst I'm saying this, the Holy Spirit is reminding me of the proverb that says that there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So I do recognize that there are times where certain decisions needs to be run by other people. But his own method here is quite interesting to me, because we weren't told here that God said anything to him. All we were told in verse 15 was that the Lord raised for them a deliverer, and he did act in his role, in his office as a deliverer. He delivered, that he killed the king, and then told the Israelites that he has delivered, that the Lord has delivered the enemies into his hand. And they went, and the land had rest for 80 years. So I thought that was really
Indeed. The story of Shamgar is also striking, even though it's just one verse in verse 31.
Wow.
But to kill 600 of the Philistines with something so crude as an ox goad, which is just like it's a farming instrument. It's nothing. It's nothing special.
600.
It's just it's a loaded story that I wish we could have been unpacked in a few more verses. But yeah, chapter 4, the whole idea of a female judge is what leapt at me straight off. And of course, this is the only female judge that was mentioned in the book of Judges. But you could tell that she was multifaceted. I mean, we see her actually, it's amongst all the other judges that we would read about, it was specifically said of her that she did judge. Like, even before the issue of going to battle came up, she was already a respected prophet that was judging Israel. People would come to her under that palm tree, and she did what judges would do. In that sense, I just think she's a phenomenal character that needs to be deeply studied, especially because of the cultural backdrop across some parts of the world where it is still a no-no for women to be allowed to rise to certain levels of influence and leadership. Deborah models how that we can't possibly, we shouldn't possibly justify, those kind of limitations, because again, God has shown us from people like this that in both gender, there is the capacity to lead, to deliver, to judge, to be all that God wants us to be.
True. What stood out to me was the chariot of iron part. In that, if we remember when we read Judges chapter 1, verse 19, we read that the tribe of Judah were afraid to drive out the Canaanites because they had chariots fitted with iron.
Yes.
In this chapter that we read in chapter 4, verse 3, the Israelites were cruelly oppressed by the Canaanites because the commander of the Canaanite army had 900 chariots of iron. And this is why they were cruelly oppressed. One of the reasons why they were cruelly oppressed. But what really stood out to me, that made me really amazed at the power of God, is that when Sisera's army all fell into panic before Barak in verse 15, we were told that Sisera got down from this chariot of iron and ran on foot. So the same thing he's using to oppress was now made less powerful, that he doesn't even trust in his chariots of iron anymore, that he had to leg it. And I thought to myself, wow. Because most times, that problem that seems so mountainous to us, that seems so encompassing, it just takes us seeing the power of God to see that it's actually levered. It's really under our feet, as not as tall as us. And as such, we can make the problem run away, leg it, away on foot. It's not something that big enough to oppress us or stand against us, because the one who is with us is greater than the one who is in the world.
Indeed.
And therefore, these problems, by God's grace, in our own eyes, they will flee on foot. In Jesus' name. I don't know how I turned it to prayer.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a fitting prayer. Thank you.
Yeah.
The Song of Deborah in chapter 5, or the Song of Deborah and Barak.
I love it.
It's a beautiful song. Lots of...
I wish you could have sang it and we're reading it. It would have been so...
Yeah.
My key would have been going up and I, in and out.
Indeed. It's a beautiful song. My highlight or my high point of it was verses 24 to 27. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Eber, the Kenite of tent dwelling women. Most blessed, let me wrap that part. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Eber, the Kenite of tent dwelling women. Most blessed. Water he asked and milk she gave. She brought him curds in the lordly bowl. She put the hand to the pen. I know. Okay. All right. Let's leave it at that. But yeah, it's a beautiful recapitulation on what Jael did in the previous chapter. Very sneaky, holy sneaky woman. She pampered the man to death. He asked for water. She gave him milk, covered him with a rug, and yet got the tent peg and drove it into his
I think what scared
temple.
me more
So bad.
was the line in verse 4, chapter 21, that said, she went softly to him.
Yeah, very softly.
And drove the peg into his temple. I thought, why go softly to him? But what really stood out to me in chapter 5 was how that Barak joined in the victory, despite the victory being won in the hand of a woman.
Yeah.
There was no bitterness. There was no... He knew it was a work of a team, and God has commissioned a woman to do it. So why not if not? And they celebrated together, giving God the glory.
Indeed. And finally, chapter 6, we are introduced to the story of Gideon. This is not the end of the story.
I've always loved Gideon.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. Yeah, I think what stood out to me, amongst many other things, I'll just share one, is actually in the meaning of his name. Of course, when he pulled down the altar of Baal, he was renamed Jerubbaal. But Gideon itself literally means one who cuts down. And indeed, that name became his destiny in a sense, because he would go on to cut down the altar of Baal and the Asherah pole and all that, to re-erect the altar of God in its place. And that's just so beautiful. But the whole concept of throwing the fleece, this is where the whole idea of throwing the fleece, be it as an idiom or a spiritual metaphor, this is where it comes from. And I know people still do that today. I think suffice it to say that Gideon was living in the Old Testament, in the old dispensation. Now we are living in the dispensation of the Spirit, in the dispensation of grace, where we get to enjoy the presence of the Holy Spirit inside us and leading us in that sense. Throwing the fleece is not going to be the safest way to be led by God, because again, the devil can also manipulate outcomes like that, which is why Gideon wants to continue to do it more than once, just to be very, 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 very sure. And he kept, throwing the fleece again and again in that sense, to say, okay, if this happens, then it must be God. And okay, now if it happens this way, then it must be God. So what stood out to you in chapter 6?
Basically, it's from verse 13 to 14. How that after the angel of God appeared to Gideon and said, oh, this is what God is saying. And then Gideon retorted with a question like, where is the Lord when all these things are happening to us? Where is the Lord that our ancestors recounted to us? The angel simply said, go in this might of yours. In that strength of that argument, in that rant, go. And it's amazing how that it just brings to mind how that God is our God. It's just our present help in times of need. In that, it's not asking us to be of different temperament or be extraordinarily perfect for Him to come to us. Just that simple line, go in this might of yours. There was no rebuke about, oh, why did you say that? Don't you know what God did, X, Y, Z? The Lord just turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. I hereby commission you. In spite of your questioning, I wouldn't say doubt, it was still commissioned. And it's just a word of encouragement to us out there. Like, things might be looking haywire, finances not settled. It could be fertility issues, it could be parenting, it could be settlement issues. Whatever it is, just know that as you are, God is willing to come to turn to you and tell you to go in that might of you. Go in that side that you have. Go even with that sadness that you have, for He has commissioned you. All we need to do is just to stay in that place of complete rest, so we can hear Him more. Because as we go, there will be more instructions of what to do next. And He needs to be the one calling the shots, so that we don't run ahead without instructions.
Thank you. That's very instructive, and I hope we take that to heart. And that's a good point to wrap it up for day 72. We'll turn the page to continue the story of Gideon on day 73, and we invite you to join us. But till then, just remember,
you're not alone
today. God bless you
very much.